Hi, welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to deviate a little bit from what I typically do and going to follow more of a tutorial pathway for talking about regular expressions, which is basically RegEx. They are a bit complicated, they're hard to use, but they're very powerful and they can get you out of a lot of data issues that you might have fairly easily. They're especially useful if you're dealing with things like PDF or any kind of free format text input. I start out this by really wanting to explain that I am not a RegEx expert. I very much consider myself a non-expert. However, I use it frequently in my workflows and I feel comfortable doing that, but I sort of start from the same point each time I use RegEx. And so I wanted to show you where I start and how I follow through and solve some of my RegEx problems. And that's how this becomes a tutorial. This video might be choppy as I go through and figure out how to get all the pieces put together and let you see my thought process along the way so that you can sort of follow it as a how-to as well. So let's go ahead and bring up Alteryx. Blank screen. And let's talk about date. Typically, or a lot of times that you're dealing with RegEx, it's because of dates. There's a lot of other things you might deal with as well, as far as formatting of numbers, sometimes about way data is spelled, misspellings, breaking down strings, things like that. But really, typically people deal with dates as one of the primary places they run into having to use RegEx, and that is to find a date and then convert the date. And so we're going to go ahead and copy in a test set. I always recommend that when you start with RegEx that you have a good set of test data that you're dealing with. Keep it simple to begin with so that you can work your way up to your bigger problem. As such, what I've done here is created a simple little text input that has a field called text, which is free format text. It has dates in a number of different formats, some good, some bad, some not at all. And the question becomes is, can I get the dates out of each of these strange different formats within these structures? Now keep in mind that you cannot write a regular expression that can convert anything. You sort of have to know what you're looking for and then create the regular expression to find that. And you can get some variation in there. Again, people are much more advanced than I am, but in this case we really have two types of numbers that two types of dates that are coming in, one which is day, short, month, year, and the other one which is year, month, day. And I just want to go ahead and make sure that I can find those two different dates that are in my text. If it's not a good date, I just want to ignore it. If it is a good date, I want to show what date that is. So where do we begin? A lot of people just jump right into trying to solve this and building the final solution. But what I like to do is just to build up my knowledge of how to format a regular expression in order to pull the data out of it. I use two different things in Alteryx. One is in the formula. There are a number of regular expression functions that you can use. You can find those on the help page for Alteryx functions. And there's also what people tend to ignore, which is always where I seem to start, which is the regular expression widget, because it sort of guides you through how to build that regular expression string that will parse your data, and then you can use that to jump in on other things. And again, I always like to begin simple and work my way up. So let's go ahead and bring this in. What we want to do here is we want to just simply check whether or not we have the ability to, or the knowledge, and create a match for our regular expression to see how it goes through. As you can see here, there's a number of things you can do within the regular expression. We'll be talking about two of those today and not the third. So the column that I want to parse is text. What I want to do is I want to create a regular expression, case sensitive or case insensitive, your choice. I've, in this example, have left that be turned on just because am dealing with the potential for that just to show you the extensions that you can use in regular expression. And what we want to do here is simply match, tell us whether it matches or not. So the very first one that I want to build, we're just going to show that we've got something in here. And we're going to continue to build on this so we see what we go for. So we've got something here. And all that we want to do is find out, is there a number in this text string at all, starting at the very basics. So we come into the regular expression. Again, you can type it in if you know what you want to do. This is helpful because it lets you build one just slightly or slowly as the case goes through, and giving you some help along the way. So starting here and building this keeps me from having to jump out into Google, because Google is always a great place to find some examples. You have to be careful, have to know what they're saying. Some are more extensive than others, and sometimes you might have to change it slightly to get it into Alteryx, but usually not too much. So what we want to do is look for a number anywhere in this text string. So first we want to do is say, starting at the beginning of the line, we want to see any character, which happens to be a period. Again, how do you find this? You look at it. Right here it says any single character as well. And then we want to know that there are 0 or more of them, so we put a star after it. What this says is that starting at the beginning of the line and looking forward to see if past any single character, let's wait until we come upon a digit, which is a number /d. How many of them do we want to see? We want to see 1 or more digits, so we get a plus in there. And then how do we finish out this string? Let's just say whether it matches. So it has from the beginning any number of characters, a number or a set of digits, and then we want to account for all the rest of the digits or characters that might be. So all the rest of the digits that might be there in the string, or basically the ending of the string, and that is a period for any single character, and we want 0 or more star. So if it finds a number somewhere, or a set of digits, which becomes a number, somewhere in this text string, then it has, we're going to go ahead and say we have something that we need to deal with just to begin to build this regular expression up. We can run that and we see that true, every single one of these has a set of digits somewhere in it. And that's good to know just because we're building that up. So the second thing we want to do is figure out how to match the year, or the date that begins with 1 or 2 digits for the day, the 3-character abbreviation of the month, and then a 4-digit year. So we want to build that string out in here. So we don't end up running away, let's go ahead and copy this one out. As we're building this through, we'll paste it back in again. And again, this is sort of me live building this with a few notes sitting along this side. So we have the same thing, but now instead in the middle, what we want to do is look for 2 digits rather than any number of digits. And the way that we do that is we use a open and close brace and put the numbers in between. I can do 1, 2. I can do 1-2 to say that there's 1 to 2 digits, or there's 1 or 2 digits. I tend to do it this way, 1 or 2 digits. And now we move forward. Again, what we want to do now is we want to match. And in this case, what we're going to be building is the have first date type. So if we run this through, we'll also see that all of these match because all of these have a 1 or 2 digit number in them, because basically 20 is 1 or 2 digits. So it's 02, 22, etc. But that's okay. We're getting there. We at least know that we're not breaking this as we go through. Well, what comes after this in our date format? Well, what comes after this is a minus sign or a dash. And then what we have is the 3-character month, And what we want to do here is identify that we want to use characters. So it's A-Z or capital A dash capital Z, which is basically one of these characters occurs. That's a lowercase alpha and an uppercase alpha. And we want to have 3 of those. We use our open and close braces and we put a 3 in there. This says now that we have a 1 or 2 digit number followed by a dash or a minus sign followed by the A through a 3 character set of values. We run this. Again, we're building this one step at a time. We can see true. Right here, we have it true here. We have it true there. We have it true there. And we have it true there. So these are actually what we're trying to build into. The other ones have turned out false. So now we know we've limited what we're going through. But let's finish this out with the 4-digit year. So again, what we have here is we have after the 3-digit month, we have another dash or a minus, and now we're going to have 2 digits or 4 digits, 4-digit year. So we do a /D for digits, and we put a 4 in there within our braces. So again, don't have to quite jump out into what's happening in the drop-down box to help us, but we're beginning to build out this string. Rerun this, and we can see that we indeed have now highlighted the first format, which is here, there, there, and there. They all match that format. Note that we don't care about the details of it yet. Notice that this is NEC, which is not the correct spelling of either December nor November, but that's not what we're looking at. We're looking right now just to find a matching string. So that's good. We know how to find the first date type. So let's go ahead and try another one, which is the slightly different date format. And in this case, we're going to go ahead and copy off the first, paste it, and this one is going to be the second. So down here is like have first date type, it has the second. So building off of this, we can now begin to edit it and be a little bit more sure that we would be going through. So what we want to do here is we have a /digit of 4, a dash, we have 1 or 2 digits, a dash, and we want 1 or 2 digits here at the end. And so this 4 is going to become a 1, 2. So again, any number of characters at the beginning of the line, 0 or more, 4 digits, a minus, 1 or 2 digits, a minus, 1 or 2 digits. If I did this correctly, we run this through, you can see now we have this date is true, this date is true, and these 2 dates are true as well. They match up as that format, and the other ones have been set to false. So this is great. So we now feel confident that we can head into our further processing now that we understand how to build one of these formats, and we've done it in a more interactive method than using the function. So again, if you put some errors in here, you'll see those immediately. You can look to fix them. So what we want to do next is go ahead and look at using a function to do the same thing. To use those functions, what we want to do is go ahead and bring in our formula. And the very first formula that we're going to do is we're going to add it, and it's going to call match first. And it's going to be a Boolean of true or false, just because we want to do the matching. And what we want to use is the RegEx match function. The string that we want to use obviously is text. And now we must give it the regular expression pattern. Fortunately, we know what that is because it's over here. We built it and we're able to see it pretty quickly. So we can just copy this out. And then within quotes, we can put that regular expression in there. This will show if it matches the first. You can see that our first record actually comes up true, which is exactly what we want it to do. So let's build another one. And we're going to do match second. That is also going to be a Boolean. It's going to be the RegEx match again. So look at text. And again, we know that pattern. We don't need it there. Let's put the double quotes in, two single quotes in. Come here to this match that we know works. Come back to our formula. Expand this back out again, right there between the single quotes. We want to put our second format in. Dislike very long comments. What we're going to do here is a RegEx match. We run this. And for completeness, drop a browse on the end of it. We look at the data. We didn't actually run this. Let's run it now. There we go. And we can see that the third and fourth column are the same. And so is the third and fifth, and the fourth and sixth columns are also the same. So we have properly translated the match from the regular expression widget into using it within the match within the formula. So I feel very confident that we can go on and build the workflow that we need to build to do this work with now that we've done our testing up here. I will leave all of these tests up here because we will draw upon them as we build our actual workflow. So what we want to do first is to find out whether or not we have either of the two formats of dates inside of our text records. So we'll do that with filters. So dropping a filter onto the data flow, we want to go ahead and use that match that we used in the formula. So here's our match. Again, it returns true if it matches. So all we have to do is copy it out, go to custom filter, and paste it in. And doing this as a tutorial, this is actually the way I would build it. We test it and we see that there are the records that have that matching pattern, and these are the records that do not. So to see which ones match the second format, we just simply drop another filter onto the false, come back to our filter or formula that use that match. Here's the second one. Paste it in here as our custom filter. And let's go ahead and clean some things up so we have room. This is second format, or even better so we remember what it is, year dash mm dash day format. Help us as we build the rest of this workflow going through. And this is our day dash mon dash year format. Great reference point as well as documenting what we're doing. Running this through. Here's our year month or day month year. Here is our year month day. And here is the only record that does not match that format. So what we want to do is to parse out the proper date from each of these. Drop this down here, and to do that I'm going to go back to my RegEx widget. A lot of people just go ahead and drop a formula in here. At this point in time, we can do that, but I'm just a little bit happier going through and using our widget. A bit easier to use since I don't consider myself an expert. What we want to do here, however, is that once we do a regular expression rather than replace, we want to parse the pieces out. And so what we will do is we will take the middle of this, which is our actual date format for the first one, copy that out, and paste that in here. And since there's nothing to parse, because when we start to parse this, we need to identify which pieces we want to be pulled out with parentheses. So we want to pull out the day by putting parentheses around it. Here's the month. And then finally, here is the year. We can go with their names and their data types, but it's nice just to be able to give something better in here. This is the day as an integer. This is the short month. And the third piece of this is going to be the year as an integer. And then we can change these. Rather than a v-string, let's make this an integer. Not the easiest to use interface. This is also an integer. And finally, let's go ahead and just make this a string of length 3. And to help us look through this as we go, let's go and drop a browse onto the end of it, knowing that there's a number of other steps we have to do. We'll just simply drag it over here. Nice to see that this said, nope, don't like you. Again, this is real time, folks. Why didn't we not like this? Nice here. Simply forgot the slash. Maybe y'all see that when I did it, maybe you didn't. But again, debugging's pretty sometimes difficult, and it might have actually been nicer if I had done this one step at a time, but we just jumped into it thinking I knew what I was doing. Cutting and pasting a little bit different. So here I have the days, 1, 18, 31, and 18. The month short, which is all November, and the NEC, and then the year. So we've successfully parsed that out. Now what we want to do is validate this data before we turn it into a date, because if it's invalid, it will give us an error, and we really would like to avoid that at this point in time. I was going to show you 2 different ways of actually dealing with this data, but this one is sort of the longhand version. Just to help me work through it, I went ahead and created a text input that has some information about years and months. So it actually has the short version of the month. It has a month for an integer in case I want to use it, and then the number of days so we can do some validation. Again, I'll show you two ways of validating this data, and this one happens possibly to be the longhand version, but it might actually be shorter than using it in your case. But again, bringing out some methodologies that I like to use, whether or not they're the best or not the best, they get me through. I'm happy with them. They give me some flexibility, and that is simply creating this text input. If I was going to be using this in a lot of places, I would store this as a table in my database, or I might save it as a YXMDB file in my local directory, but I'm just working on this very quickly to let you see. And again, the long-term solution I would have is that I would turn this into a macro that would allow me to do this work. But again, just bring some other pieces in. So now I have all of the date, all of the month values here. I want to make sure that none of those are wrong. So I want to go ahead and bring in another, which is the find replace, one that you might not use that often. I have found it later in my career using Alteryx, and it became very useful. Essentially what I want to do is find the entire field in text, not in text, in short month. It matches short month. I don't care about the case, so it can be case insensitive. I don't want to replace. I want to append the number of days onto the record coming in. So this way you see that we happen to have the number of days in each of these months. This happens to be November, so we can validate whether the data coming in is good or not. Also note that since it did not find this misspelled, it becomes a null, which means that it's actually going to be filtered out in our next step, so we don't have to worry about it. So we drag a filter in here to make sure the number of the day that's been given to us matches. That's very simple. We'll start with the basic one, which is the day integer. It needs to be less than or equal to. We can't put the value in here, so we drop into the custom filter very quickly and go ahead and click on number of days. Since I know ahead of time from having used that comparison to the null will return a false, it will actually throw out that bad record that did not have a good month in it. We see that 2 of these records had a good month and a good day, and 2 of the records, one was a bad month and the other one was a bad day for November. So again, we've sort of validated the data coming through it. And now the final thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and manipulate that date set of strings and turn it actually into a date field. And we will do that with a formula. This is where we're going to use one of our date formulas that we are used to. In that formula, what we want to do is we want to add a column, and let's call it the date. And what we want to do is use the DateTimeParse. Again, if you're questioning about some of these formulas, go ahead and take a look at my videos about functions. I cover a number of these. I do not cover RegEx because I saved it because it's not my strong point, but people have been asking. So let's go ahead. And so what is that format going to be? Well, let's go ahead and start with the year. Well, we're going to build the string that we want to parse. You can do this the proper way as I slow down. I want to build a string that I can parse out to a date, and its format wants to be the year, since I get to choose, and then the 3-character month, which is %B, and then finally the day, which is %day. Again, if you're wondering about these, check my video or check the help page for functions. It'll explain to you how to parse and create a date. So we need to give it these 3 pieces. The first piece is the year. What I need to do is to turn that integer into a string. So I'll use the toString function, and that is the actual year integer, and it is going to have no decimal places, so we give it a 0. We want to add to that piece of the string the short month, and then finally add the conversion to integer of the conversion of the integer to a string for the number of days. And so here we can do a toString again, but this time giving it the field of day integer, and again the number of decimal places is 0. You can see that once we finish typing in that formula, the first record has been properly converted. You need to remember to go ahead and turn this into a date. I like to forget this, by the way. So here we go. Let's run this through. You can see that no errors occurred, and we now have the proper date here at the end from parsing out the first set. Save us some rooms, and let's call this simply make date. Thank you. And to clean this up to get it ready to go into our final solution, we'll want to drop a select on here and get rid of all the data that we don't need in this flow, which is all that we want is the text that came in and the date that's going out. We also drop a select down here and clean up this bad record. Because which is simply the date, and the pieces that we're working on are bad. Drop a browse on the end of this one as well, so we can see all the data, line it up. So now you see we have our two good fields and our two bad fields that have no conversion associated with them. While we're doing this cleanup, let's go ahead and down here the false. This happens to be the bad record that we started with. Well, not bad record, the record that had no date in it. Now all we need to do is to convert out the second format, and we'll do that slightly differently. We'll take a more direct route. Let's bring in our regular expression widget. And again, what we want to do here is to go ahead and parse from text, coming back into this second format we had up here. As you can see, we can start with the full string. And what we need to do is turn this into parsing out that whole piece of the date. And we're going to call this date string. Right size it. Let's drop this guy down here a bit. Add a browse for this piece of data. Run through. Take a look at what we have, and you can see that we do indeed have the date strings for each of those.